The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ru, and I'll be today's moderator for this webinar. Our topic is experience with remote testing, and our presenter is Maaret Pyhajarvi. The presentation will be on for about 45 minutes, and then we will have another session for comments, questions, and answering. Once the presentation is over, you can type your questions using the panel from the GoToWebinar application, and I will ask them from Maaret, and you can get the replies there. We will have a recording of this webinar and the materials, the slides made available on the FAST website later on. So we will share the link after this webinar is over. This is it. So Maaret, the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks, Ro. So, theme for today is about the experiences from the last 4 months that I've had at my current place of work, Granlund, with remote testing. Other people might say outsourcing, but somehow this remote testing seemed more appropriate. So, like with the invite, the outline is that I'm going to try to explain to you why we ended up with a remote tester and why the remote is from Romania instead of why would the remote not be like from a couple of blocks away in Helsinki, or why wouldn't it be from Oulu? Because actually the difference of location is quite a big thing that we were thinking about. Then I'm going to try to explain to you, or I will explain to you, how we actually organized our collaboration, how we work together with the tester, and what's my role in all of this. And I will share some of the lessons we've learned in the 4 months of our collaboration. If you have questions, even in the middle, you can already start typing them in, and Ru will collect them, and we'll go through them in the end. For this particular webinar, we'll have the question session in the end, and we'll probably try some other ones later on where we could do questions also in the middle. Also, maybe ones where you can actually, we would allow participants to talk. This one is broadcast only mode, so this is the way we are organizing now. So the story here is that last year, beginning of April, I changed jobs. Some of you might know me, and you might know that I tend to have this work history where I change jobs about every 2 or 3 years. And I don't do that because I wouldn't like the previous company. I do that to actually experience different companies, different approaches. And I felt about a year ago that it was time for me to do more of hands-on testing, find bugs myself, log bugs myself, and work with a small team that would make it more certain that I would actually get time to test instead of just talking to people about testing or managing testing. So about a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, I joined Granlund, which is a civil engineering or engineering office. Actually one that I didn't know about before I joined. We have about 500 people in Finland for Granlund, but the software development organization for Granlund, it's really small, so there's 20 people, and we do mostly software that we use internally at the company, productivity tools, but we also are creating two of let's say more with more significant effort. We're creating two web-based tools. One is called Ryhti, the picture is there on the top, and the other one is called Raisu, and they are both for building maintenance, building information collection type of things, but quite different in what they're made for. So these two products were the ones that I joined into to test. I'm the very first tester at Granlund. So before I joined, they were developers. of course, project managers with experience of making specifications, project managers with experience of doing user interface designs, but they didn't actually have a tester at all. And they wanted to hire one because they felt that they were missing information at release time that should be found. And when I joined and had 2 different products at my hands, I quite soon realized that one person is really not enough for this kind of work, because everybody was kind of expecting that when there is a tester, they can actually get some help on testing. They maybe could even do a bit of less of testing that they've done themselves, because now there was somebody to do particularly that kind of a job. So when we were making a list of things that would need to be tested, because there were a lot of things we found in the versions that were in production, when we were creating those lists, we realized that there's so much work that it would take me way too long alone, and we decided that we would seek for help. In particular, we had in mind, we called it quality depth bugs in the versions that were already out there, already in production, that customers didn't complain about unless they turned so bad that they needed to voice out their concerns. So we needed a list of those, and to find the list, the current developers weren't enough. So we were thinking of how do we get somebody to help, and with the usual cost concerns, we were actually looking at 2 different options at that point. We were looking at U-Test, which is a collaborative effort where you basically get many testers, crowdsourcing type of testers for testing your product for the scenarios that you might have in mind. And we were looking at this scenario with remote testing, basically getting somebody from a country where work is a little bit cheaper, and then would work with our team remotely. And we decided not to go with U-Test because we felt that it had taken me already several months, and I still wasn't like expert in all of the different areas of, for example, Ruhti, the top system there, because it has about 12 different areas, each with a specialized business context. And to actually find the most difficult bugs in that, you would need to become a domain specialist. And you don't become a domain specialist if you're just doing testing like on a surface level with the easy things. We might get benefit from that, and most likely actually would have gotten benefit from that. But we decided that on the longer term and on the in-depth feedback that we'll need, having somebody to grow with the product is actually a better choice. So we went with somebody, again, might say outsourcing or remote sourcing or that type of words, but we went with the remote tester, finding somebody that could do the work but not be co-located with the rest of the team. And the reason probably why this was an easy thing to do is that my facilitator or my moderator here in the webinar today, Ru, is a good friend of mine, and her friend or her company is actually doing this kind of work. So I had some ideas of what this might be, and we decided then with my manager, who had no previous experience on this, to actually start the collaboration on the testing. So it's web testing, web applications. We have them available in theory, at least, both in Finnish and in English. So it seemed like a good fit to do this kind of work. So what we did then is agree on when we would start and make the contracts and all that sort of things, and get the name for the tester. And the tester would first then, in the beginning, she would come to Finland for 1 week. We talked about 2 weeks or even a month. So the time frame was quite short because I said I think a week is enough, and the remote tester was working in a co-located manner with us for a week, except that it's not very co-located when the local team that I have here in Helsinki is actually only 2 days of a week at the office, so they also work remotely quite much. And we have 2 team members who work from Kuopio, middle of Finland. So even though she was co-located for that 1 week, it was more of a co-location with me and saying hi to the developers when they came into the office on Mondays and Thursdays. What we did on the first week is that we set up, we documented the expectations. We wrote together this little document where we basically said, this is what you're supposed to do, this is the value you're supposed to provide, basically saying log bugs, write documentation, and help us improve the remote testing setting. And then most of the week went on to testing. Like I assigned one area for her to test, and I was testing another area that I was currently quite busy with. And occasionally we would talk. Like whenever she had questions, we tried to cover those, and I tried to show like how the program works and all that sort of things. And I remember already after the first day of testing that there was quite many things that she had already spotted on the area that was assigned to her as the first thing to learn. And having now seen it for longer, actually, I think she's getting to be the expert in the area. At least that's how people feel about the results right now. Then when she left after the week, we agreed that we would stay in touch. We would contact over Skype. We would be sending emails when needed. So it has turned so that we use the text messaging over Skype quite much. I tend to send these short messages about, oh, this and this cool bug was found, and this is what the developers say about it, and like just write down things or make things visible that are local, but would be good for her to know. And since I can't hear them talk all the time either, that's not a very big thing. It's more on Mondays and Thursdays and on big realizations that we have that I will share these kind of things. And then she's really active on Skype asking like, hey, I have this question, can you help me with that? And if it's something that is easier talking than texting, we're quite easily taking a phone call over Skype. For developers in particular, I noticed that the remote tester, she's sending emails with questions, and the style in those questions is very short, very clear, and very to the point. So the written communication skills have been a very good, like a big part in the positive feeling that we've had with the experience. Because the developers then can like address the questions and with the examples is this way or that way. It's actually relatively easy. Actually, they say it's never easy because the questions are too insightful for easy answers. But the format in which they come is such that it's relatively easy to go and move forward with those. And the main thing that I like us doing now more of is this talking and screen sharing over Skype. Just earlier this week, we were looking at user interface designs over Skype, sharing a screen together, because the user interface designs for our company, they are in Finnish, so they need to be talked about so that the context actually moves. And also having been there to talk about those in Finnish with Finnish-speaking people, I know that just looking at the pictures, you would only probably get half of the message. And another thing over Skype I've liked us doing is when we started testing the second system, Raisu, is that we were actually using a few hours to share the screen and test together and talk while we were testing about what features are there, what concerns we have, and what ideas we came up with. So making it more of really a team effort. So with all of this, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm forgetting that I actually have a remote tester, except for the point that I can't see her, I can only hear her most of the time. I already mentioned this, that we have a Finnish and an English user interface, but since the team is working in Finland, the local team is working in Finland, our language here is Finnish, and we actually have some developers that are, let's say, a bit older, or, well, some of them are in general a bit less comfortable with using English as the working language. So the end result is that most of our documentation, we have some, but most of it is in Finnish. So it's not available for our remote tester unless I will translate it or go through with her. So some of the information that I might get from the documentation isn't easily available for her. But also the user interface, it's sometimes such that the developers might be adding new strings in Finnish, and it might take 2 to 3 weeks before somebody actually translates them to English. So this is something I didn't actually foresee when we started with the collaboration. That it actually might be that she would have complete new areas to test where there would be basically anything in English. But then again, another thing I didn't really anticipate is that I never actually realized what a great tool Google Translate can be when it's given to the hands of an active person. So it's surprising how little questions she needs to ask about the language issues. And she still does know how the program works and can do the investigative work. And as per results, we'll talk about those a bit later, it actually doesn't show up in the results that she would struggle with this hugely. She's creating lists of vocabularies and things she needs to remember, helping documentation, and that's what probably helps to do the work. And the other part is that even though we have, for some of the features, we have the English version, the translation might be of so low quality in comparison to the Finnish one, because it might not be in use for any of the English-speaking customers, that it might sometimes even say just quite the opposite of what's the intended meaning. Like if it's saying that this is something that you need to mark if you don't want this to happen, it works just the other way around. So it's been one of the challenges that I've been positively surprised that it actually didn't cause pretty much any trouble actually. So this is one of my big surprises. So how we organize our work then is that we use a backlog. We write down things we're supposed to do. So we don't have detailed test cases. We do exploratory testing. And we do exploratory testing because the developers had already, before they had any testers, they had already tried doing manual testing with scripts. They had created test cases which actually have tens and tens of pages, but only a few words of relevant information. And they were missing all of the bugs. So we knew from the experience with me before the remote tester joined that exploratory testing is the style that we would want to go for. And for managing that, we took this backlog view that we need to see and we need to agree the budget, like the time frame in which things happen. So it's not an open budget, like you can do this forever or you don't have to tell about what you're doing, but it's more like, let's talk about the pieces of what this comprises of, and let's put them on a list, and then let's split them to either days of work. From my choice, our maximum amount at that starting point was that we would say it's half a day's work is the smallest task that we would put there. But you don't have to use half a day if you think you can do it in 5 minutes. That's fine as well. but that wasn't usually the case. We didn't go to such level of detail in our planning. But we put a list in, basically first in Google Docs about the work that we would do, and like a bit of informative text of what we would do there. And some like 1.5 months ago, or a bit more, over a month ago, we moved our backlog to Jira, which is the tool that we use for the rest of the development. And again, it's still just a backlog. It has now hours of how much time we use. There's some categorization into themes or epics that we use to like remind of what kind of categories we're working on. And you can probably see on the slide that there's a huge difference in the task size. There might be 5-hour tasks, or there might be 40-hour tasks. But we tend to split work so that they are below 1 week, and the really big ones are such that we don't take them yet into our actual work in progress. But we talk before we start on like what's the thing that we'll do first, and we create we'll create a backlog of that. So we choose which ones come for which of the months. Which one comes for which of the months, and then we work with the tasks with this really simple, like a board, Kanban type of a board with our tasks, and there's basically just a list of things to do, things that are in progress and things that are done. And you can also see our remote tester's name there. Hi Alexandra, I know you're listening. So this is just the way of seeing how much work there is, and this is a very recent picture of what we're working on right now, and what kind of things we have there. So with the backlog and talking about the work that is on top and needs changes or needs completing on a weekly basis, I feel, at least from the customer point of view and from the responsible point of view, that actually I have more control sometimes than I actually would need. And we've been recently trying to lower my level of control, so that I'm actually suggesting to Alexandra that she would actually do the splitting of the work herself and add tasks here. And that's been working quite nicely also, like adding more of the personal stuff there. Also, one of the things that we've agreed that she's responsible for, just like I'm responsible for my work on my team, is make sure that if I'm not available, if I'm leaving, I'll join another company in 3 years or 2 years, they don't have to start all over again. So with the idea that I'm not there forever, it kind of has guided me into the idea that other people need to learn how the testing works as well. We need to create checklists, supporting material, supporting documentation that helps us remember, but also helps others remember what we had learned so far. The picture here is just another mind map, but it was I put it here just to tell that, or just to remind that mind maps are actually a pretty useful way of lightweightly documenting things, their relationships, things that you see and you need to clarify. So there's a lot of these question marks, things that you should ask, or she should ask from me, that were not obvious at first time. And it's really easy, actually, at least from my point of view, it was really easy to have this kind of a mind map and have her explain why the mind map is organized in the way it is, what are the relationships, what has she thought of. And I could, like in less than 1 hour session, I could easily say, like, hey, you seem to not be thinking of these kind of things. Is it intentional? Should you be concerned about that? So it's not a big effort. It actually makes the thinking process a bit more visible. But another part of the mind maps or documentation is that mind maps alone, I'm not very comfortable with having just mind maps over long term. So what I tend to do with mind maps personally is that when I've learned I of course keep the mind map of the learnings, but I also create a checklist of the functionalities, like a functionality list, and make that a matrix together with the browsers we need to cover and the user rights we need to cover. And that's still something that we're working on to get that kind of lists with the remote testers. So we have a different flavor, different style of documenting. And also we've started a bit on investigating how to do specification by example style test cases. So creating documentation about how the product works with examples that then we could have the rest of the team help us with automating. So that's a kind of future direction that we'll be working on. But creating the documentation is one of the significant responsibilities that both myself and the remote tester in the team has, and it's been working quite nicely. Another part of documentation then is the bug reports. And again, I took actually a real example. I only took away the information that might somehow reveal information about Groundlund's customers, because that's not my intention of showing those. But about the contents of the testing, we can talk quite openly. So this is an example of a bug report. It's short enough to fit the screen capture that I took here. But what it shows to me, and why I wanted to include it here, is that it's really relevant to write the bug reports in such a way that you don't end up with a ping pong between two countries, even though we are actually pretty much on the same time zone, so we work on same times, so we don't need to coordinate the time difference with this one. But we still need to have the message from one person go to another person, and understanding that other person understanding what it's about without getting upset about the unclarities and missing information. So clear bug reporting has been really relevant. And again, a positive surprise that I had with our collaboration is that I didn't need to teach the clear reporting to her. I actually write much worse reports nowadays because I have the benefit of working close side by side with the developers. I can optimize my use of time and just put small tiny notes and not clear repro steps sometimes. But she had the skill of reporting in a very professional way right from the beginning. So there's the same kind of like formula of what to do and what you see and what you expect in steps, really easy to read in all of the bug reports. And our developers have definitely appreciated this and also appreciated the information that if something is hard to reproduce and you need to be very specific about the steps. Then about the experience, I also took some numbers of showing how the work goes. The numbers tell more about the things we need to notice in the product in general, because currently the rate that we log bugs is about 4.5 bugs for the two of us every working day. And there are working days when actually, for example, I'm not doing testing because I'm doing something else with the team. So it's really on average for the two of us for the time frame when there's been two of us. And the numbers just tell that it seems that in the same time frame, the two of us have actually logged about the same amount of reports into our system. I took this from yesterday's numbers, and it seems that the difference still that I was pondering about, like is there a difference or not, is on the which ones get fixed. And it seems my rate, the local rate, was a bit higher for the ones that have been addressed so far. I realized that some of it is because I have the benefit of talking to the people and making things more painful, if they should be painful. And another part is actually the assignments that I've given to the remote tester, that I've given her areas. For example, the budgeting area was one of those where it's been waiting on the shelf for a year without any real customers. It's going live like right about now, but the fixing of the bugs from that area might not have been the most pressing thing for schedule, but it's now possible since it's listed. And if they were fake bugs, if they were not relevant bugs, they would be closed and out of the list also. So it just tells that we find so many bugs that it's hard for the developers to actually address that many things with the small numbers that we actually have of people in the team. But you probably shouldn't compare these numbers to your own numbers, but they're more about the context that we live in with our software. How many things are there? How much of things are there to log separately as problems? So it seems that at least the most relevant value that we were seeking from the remote tester, finding bugs that matter, finding things we want fixed, we are getting that, but we're kind of having a bit of trouble with the fixing side of it. So finding many things would require more fixing as well. Then I collected some reactions that I remember over the last 4 months about what people are saying about having a remote tester. People at our office, our developers, they know she exists. Some of them actually talk to her directly if they work on the same area. We have a direct connection between the developer and the tester, remote tester. I don't need to be in between in all of those discussions. But we know that she exists, but since we don't see her all the time, it might be that it's not so like always on our mind type of a thing. And that's probably something I would even actually like to see somehow even more of connection, but it might be hard with the Finnish-speaking team. I've had the product manager come to me specifically asking, can we have Alexandra in particular test this area, that we really need the feedback, and saying that it's the reports are so clear, they are in English for this particular case where they would use an outside developer to help with the fixes, and that we feel we can trust, or the product management felt they can trust the results. So apparently the bugs coming in and the product manager prioritizing those had made some impact. Another thing that I marked down here is that there was an impressive analysis or level of analysis of style sheets. This was a very recent discussion about me asking for a different type of testing than I've asked before, basically using web testing tools to go under the hood and see that kind of things. And when the software architect then looks at the results, he says, like, it looks or it shows that there is actually the idea behind what's been done. So it's not just the type of things that I sometimes do, like I turn on the memory monitor and I see that memory is leaking, but I have no idea where exactly it's leaking. But this was more of a going in depth with the analysis of what kind of things you might want to pay more attention to. So really helpful things. Then some of the developers in the other team were actually saying that, please, Maaret, don't let her to new areas anymore. she finds so many problems that we can't actually fix all of them. And whenever she finds them, the product management now thinks they are showstoppers and high priority. And we were fine while they were just there and nobody knew about them. So I think this is a positive problem from the testing point of view. And there's ways also to calm down the product management. But I think this feedback just shows that she's been really invaluable to our team with the realism that the product maybe isn't perfect even though the customers are quiet, because the problems are such that they actually, when we know of them, we want to address them. So that's one idea. And the last one is one of the very earlier comments, which has followed us for the whole thing. Our product managers were saying we are paying for the full invoice. This is business relevant testing. The results are such that we want to pay for these, and we agreed we would split the cost with the software development, but we don't need to. We don't need to do that because all of the things are such that we want to actually pay for it. So that was, I think, quite a significant thing to say about the results that she's providing. So these are things that we've heard of or I've heard from how she works and what kind of value she's bringing to our team. Also, one of the things I noticed is that we somehow need visibility for the management layer, like product managers see the bugs, they find the bugs relevant, the developers see the bugs, they find the bugs relevant. But for us, the project managers and development managers might have a bit more of a staying on the side type of a thing, leaving things for me to take care of. So I've also noticed that these monthly letters to provide visibility or summaries of the types of things she's doing and the types of results she's creating, they have created a really nice frame for our collaboration. So not having people suspicious about the things that are happening, but actually having things visible, it has created, I think, a nice setting for us to do the work that we're supposed to do on the testing side. We had also some difficulties. Some of these are recent difficulties, adding the other system into the remote testing concept. For example, we had an internal document management system that we don't give access to for any of the externals. And when we have that kind of a system, it's very hard for anyone to test that remotely. So we can't do any of that. That particular part, I can't have her do it, but I have to do it. Then another thing that was somewhat difficult is trying to remember what to set up for a remote person. And I noticed that just having somebody who has needed to do this before, like somebody who is already doing remote testing for other companies, they can actually remind the customer about oh, by the way, you will need this one. If we don't have this one, then it's going to be difficult. So all of the things about getting access to logs, getting the relevant information sent to the remote team member, all of that types of things, it's taken a little bit of practice to make sure all of it works nicely, because we hadn't done that before. And another difficulty we've faced is that even though we've been really pleased with the results, there's still the humanity part. We hired a person, not a robot, and we hired somebody who doesn't know everything, right from the beginning, but is actually learning things as she goes. And that's the same thing with me. Every tester is like that they don't know all of the things. And developers, they would fix the bugs if they knew of them. So we're looking for unknown information. So there might be blind spots, there might be things that you need to learn, and I find that the collaboration that we've had, where we talk about the actual contents of testing, what we tested, how we tested, did we check this, did we consider that, that's been really relevant. For one particular area, there were some challenges with not getting all of the information that was embedded on pictures because there was Finnish text involved, or not making all the connections about the product right. So having a solo tester, somebody who is completely alone, I don't think it would work with non-remote setting any better than it does work for this one. So it's usually useful if you have somebody you can have a coach and give you feedback about the types of things you're missing. And the relevant part is learning from all of those types of things. So we learned we're different as testers. I've done testing personally for 13 years, and she's, I think, about 3 years into testing now. We have very different personalities in what kind of investigation we do to any of the issues we find. I'm sometimes even a bit too cautious about or aware of the how little time I have available, right, and how much work there is. So I might do these rushed reports, whereas she, of course, also since she's working remotely, she actually can't do it as easily as I can. So I tend to leave more of the things for developers to investigate, and she tends to use a bit more time on investigating the things she finds. We look at different things. Again, personally, I notice I'm nitpicking on words and user interface and consistency and features not working the same way. And I think she's taking some of that same type of things from examples quite nicely. But then the thing that I'm really envious of that I don't actually have is that she's really great with numbers and keeping track of what she knows and what she doesn't know and what kind of things to ask, and if she asked and what was the answer, and the structures of her notes, where she knows when she was doing something and going back to the pictures of what she saw, and all that kind of exploratory testing, track keeping skills. I think that's somehow somewhat amazing sometimes. And another thing is that I also have these non-testing responsibilities. I get to hang out with the team, I get to hang out with product management, and she just gets these few line summaries of what was the most relevant thing about each of the things we've talked about. So we have also a different level of information available to us. To end this with my lessons learned. I think success and satisfaction and being happy with the outsourced testing that you have, it actually has a lot more to do with who's the tester, where you find the right kind of a person who's actually a good tester, than the idea of shall we do it in-house or externally. And if you don't have, like we didn't have, more testers in-house, and we didn't want to hire more testers in-house, maybe using somebody from outside is a good option. And if you get this good people from Romania with less money than you have to pay for in Finland, I find it somehow difficult to see why I wouldn't use that, because my second option for getting the tester was actually not to get one or get one for half-time, because the budget was so tight. And I don't feel that the half-time person would actually work quite as nicely as the full-time tester did. And when you focus on the results, delivering them continuously, it builds the trust, and the trust builds more of the success and happiness. and feedback is quite relevant. So saying the things that bother you, I think that's one big part of the success that I feel we've had here. Then the buying exploratory testing, I think it's somewhat easier maybe for me than for some of the other people. Maybe because I do that myself, I know exactly what I'm buying. And I know I'm not buying testing without any documentation. I'm not buying testing that just logs bugs on the current version. But I'm also buying support for our future, which is documentation. So since I knew what I was contracting for, it's quite easy for me to come up with things that we change or we tweak or we monitor and keep the like a big picture and the goal in mind. And the third big lesson was that having this pair where I'm testing same products and she's testing same products, we work quite nicely together. I would probably work just as nicely with somebody who was local, but the point here still is that having someone remote, it's still cheaper for our company, but the results are as valuable, and getting them didn't cost more from our point of view. I would use as much time, exactly the same approaches with a local tester than I would with a remote tester. So these are my kind of things. And the risk there that I talked about, the language Finnish, it could have been a problem if there wasn't for Google Translate and active attitude. So these are my thoughts and my experiences on remote testing. So we're ready for the questions part.
Thank you, Maaret.
I'm handing back to you.
Thank you. So if you have any questions or comments, please just type them in the questions sections of the webinar application. Okay, we have a first question from Juha Itkonen. How scalable do you think this remote testing concept is? What would you change if you would need 5 more testers?
I would probably change the same thing as I would change for needing 5 or even more testers in a bigger company. I would make sub-teams. I would create areas of responsibility where the area is not the whole product, but somehow it's split to groups that can actually talk to each other. Maybe 5 more people, I might still actually be able to do things with this, just like one backlog, one area type of thing. There's actually work for, I think, for about 5 people for 1 year in our backlog right now. So that would still, having 12 areas in the product, it would still scale quite nicely. But if we talk about having 10 people or 15 people, then I would definitely have to split to more teams. But also, since our product isn't that big, we would get the trouble quite soon of being really always on exactly the same areas if we would have a really large team on a tiny product. Because again, since it's been developed by about 6 developers, it's not that big compared to some other systems I've worked with.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, from Ansi. Would it be nicer to work having Alexandra locally? For lunch, if nothing else, for example, do you get lonely as the only tester?
Actually, I think Skype is helping me with my loneliness already. And like the FAST community probably knows, I have other mechanisms of coping with my loneliness, basically doing sessions with FAST. It would be nice, of course, to have a colleague locally, but also I'm kind of enjoying my lunches with the developers. I think the locally part is more for the sadness of feeling that I have for Alexandra, that she misses all the great discussions and the really nice talking and things that we do with the developers. And what I actually am more concerned about with the remote testing is not about what I'm missing, but it's what what she might be missing. And what comforts me, at least in that, is that I know that she has really nice teammates back in her office in Romania, and I can kind of rely that her lunches with them are as much fun as my lunches with my developers, and we still have the connection of us, two of us together over Skype, where things work quite nicely.
Okay, next one is from Alex. I'm stuck with the percentage of bugs that get fixed. Have you thought in depth why there are such big differences?
Yeah, I have. It's because there are areas that are not as relevant for customers that I have assigned for Alexandra. That's the big difference. So for example, when we have an area that she's tested that is used by one customer, whereas the areas that I've tested are used by 20,000 customers, those bugs get higher priority. So that's the core of the reason. And there is a bit of this, it's easy to leave them since they come from somebody remote. But there's been recently that same kind of spirit locally with my bugs, because the developers have been overworked, and they can't do all of the things that are expected of them. So I think that's the assignments are the core of why the numbers are different.
Okay, next question from Yuso. Did you think about daily or weekly meetings via Skype between testers and developers?
Yeah, we did. I actually suggested that at some point to developers, and since even the meetings with developers or developers amongst themselves with our current project manager, they sometimes have a bit of problems. Changing language to English wouldn't help with the trouble we're already facing. So it's something we'll probably consider in the future when the local teamwork is a bit more organized on the development side. But still, even the time when she came and introduced herself to the developers, the like shivering in the voice, like, oh, I'm so scared type of a voice from one of our developers on the idea that he had to talk English. I'm probably not ready to force them to get that yet, unless that's an issue for Alexandra's happiness. Then I would.
Okay, another one from Alex. Have you thought of having her more often in Helsinki for pairing with the team?
The team won't pair with me, so why would they pair with her? So they first need to get past the idea of how to work with an exploratory tester at all. I get them to pair with me sometimes. It's actually worth another talk probably how they react, some of them, to me pairing and testing with them. But I think there's other things to solve before that could happen. And for example, the fact that they are not at office to pair with, it doesn't help to come to Helsinki if they are not at the office.
Okay. There's another one from Ansi who's asking if Alexandra can answer. Do you sometimes not ask or report something because it's too much of a work? Ale, I think you can reply to this one in the chat.
Can you repeat the question? What was it?
Do you sometimes not report something because it's too much of a work? And I can ask you as well.
Yeah.
Maaret. So if you sometimes not ask or not report
something. I know that she doesn't, because I know that I've talked to her about always asking, like just calling me, just sending me a note, and not coming up with too many answers by herself because I'm busy, and she knows that, and that there's always way too much things to do. and the developers are also overworked and focusing on too many things at once. So I noticed that she's trying to protect us from something we don't need protecting from. So I'm pretty sure her answer is that she leaves things without saying. So that's at least my assumption.
Again from Alex, if I remember correctly, you have 2 days of work in the office. How different do you see this relations compared to remote testing the remote testing relation?
2 days at the office with developers. Well, I have 2 teams. The other team is always at the office, and the other team is 2 days at the office. So I don't see much of a difference in having them 2 days at the office versus just having discussions over Skype, as long as I feel I know the person I'm working with. Like, I don't know her in depth, but I've met her for the week. I've seen her results, and I know we can talk, so we get along. So I don't see that big a difference in that.
Okay, do we have any more questions? We've gone through all the active ones at the moment. Okay, I think now that we've gone through all the questions, we can close this session. Thank you, Maaret, and thank you everyone for joining us. I will share all the materials, the slides, and the recording of the webinar on the FAST website later on, so please check there. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.